The teaching of the Book of Light dovetails with the teaching of the Buddha. That was what the Buddha taught to a few disciples who were not only interested in detaching from the world, but who wanted also to understand and know how the world functions. And the Buddha makes it clear, it's not necessary to even know if Earth is round or flat or whatever, to detach from it. But if you want to know, then he said to them, I can teach you. And this is what the teaching of the Book of Light is also. It may enable you to detach easier from everything if you understand how the machine works. That machinery that keeps you attached and that kept you attached for so long. Let's honor the Buddha in a way that we understand a little bit about his life. He was born about the middle of the 6th century BC in Kapilavastu. It's an Indian city, and he was born as Prince Siddhartha or Siddhartha, be it Sanskrit or Pali. His father was King Suddhodana. The family was those of the Gautamites. So he was an Indian. And India was an own world, so to speak, at that time. But even from time immemorial, you could say. Shut off by the Indo-Persian mountain frontier in the northwest, and by the Himalayas in the northeast, and in the southwest by Arabian Sea, and then by the Indian Ocean in the southeast. Now, India was cut off, and it was difficult to have commercial relations with the neighbor nations. Nevertheless, they existed, and they had enough relations. On one hand, on the other hand, they were strong enough to protect themselves. And there were, during the time of development, there were invasion by foreign armies in other countries, but not in India, and other continents, not in India. And so India was protected. Later, the Greek and the Scythians and the Mohammedans and so forth, they broke over India. And the Indian world of thought was, but then, already consolidated. They had their scholars, and nobody could tell them anything, and could not influence them otherwise. It almost was like with the Roman Empire. When the Romans conquered Greece, they made the Greeks their slaves, but the Greeks became their teachers, the Greek. The Greek became the teachers of the Romans. Slaves become teachers of the rulers, of the masters. You can say, like with Egypt, Indian culture is original. The climate of the country was so that man could also think beyond his daily problems to philosophical problems, and therefore they became very fast, you could say, religious people. See, the northern part of India is subtropical, but the greater part is tropical, and when you look at Indian poetry of all kinds, epic, lyrics, drama, you will always have the charm, and magic of tropical world. Excuse, please, my bad English and my mumbling, but I had a pneumonia, and I can hardly breathe, but I try my best. Dear friends, that was India, the country, continent on which the Buddha was born. And there was a language that was spoken since long time, and there was also Sanskrit. That was the language of the ancient Indians. And so this Sanskrit had its root, and that root was Sansar, taught in the Book of Light. You can also learn Sanskrit by studying the Book of Light, which you can download at no expense. Here, at that page here, on that link. Yeah? Where does the term Arya comes from? Well, the Book of Light teaches this is a very ancient term, hundreds, thousands of years old. But the Indo-Europeans, they called themselves Aryans. They were settled in India. The Indo-Europeans who settled in India, they called themselves Aryans. Thus, also in Buddha's time. That can be found in Digha Nikaya 16:28, where we read, as far as Aryans dwell, and as far as commerce extends that is fostered by merchants, this defendant city of Pataliputra will shine as the first. And when we look at the term Arya, this has been abused by the Nazis, as they say. It actually means devout. It means pious. An Aryan is one who belongs to the pious. This is how we have to understand it. And that indicates the original nature of the culture, built by Aryan Indians. Now, a pious person is a person that has a religious concept. He looks at life from the religious point of view, at life and the world. And if that is so, then such a man or woman who looks at life religiously, he looks at life also concerning next life, securing of the future after death. This he feels himself or considers himself bound to. Religatur, Latin, religatur, bound to this obligation. And that has nothing to do with a personal God or not. When the Buddha came, the teaching of karma and reincarnation was already in progress, and everybody knew it. That's not the new thing that he brought. No. He brought something completely new, though, that upsets the Krishnaites and the Brahmins until today. That's a problem. We will see why. The Aryan Indians thus were religiously minded from the very beginning until present time. No matter how many problems there are and how many crazy, strange things happen in India, we can say that Indian people are the most religious people on earth. They had a noble, sublime culture, no matter how much they were enslaved them by the British monsters and so forth. But India has no real historiography like Greece and Rome. And historians are not so well known in India like they are known in Greece and in Rome. That's not the Indian nature, you know. The Indians were too superior to take delight in lists of kings or something like that. See, we find that with the Egyptians, they have lists of kings and pharaoh, and so for the Indians, it's not important. They have another manner of counting, another way of counting. The Aryan genius was not so interested in temporal things to say in the year 2100 this and this happened, then in the year 2300 this and that. That's not the Indian. That's not the Indian way. It's not the Indian way. But they had a very rich literature, poetical, religious, philosophical, yes, but not this, year 1 and 2 and 100 and 200 and 300. That's not for the Indian. And how religiously that frame of mind was of the Indians, we can see in the hymns of the Rig Veda. See, one thing we have, of course, to say right now: the Vedas, as wonderful, as great, as admirable, as genius and divine as they may be, they are now completed by the Book of Light, because the Vedas are incomplete. This is why the Book of Light is pre-Vedic science. And repetition is the best teacher, so I tell you that prior to all religion and all Vedas and all Upanishads and all Bhagavad Gitas and whatever, there was one scripture, millions of years ago, uniting all mankind. There was peace on earth. And mankind was, you see, very spiritual. But then we fell deeper and deeper and deeper into material world, and our skins, our bodies became denser. We built wall around ourselves. See, I don't look at bodies today. I see only walls. I see open wounds running over the surface of this planet. Different. And so that one knowledge split into the many religions and philosophies and sciences of today. And now that one knowledge is back, it's the Book of Light. It is the only scripture on earth that teaches all religions are perfectly right. All sciences are perfectly right. All philosophies are wonderful. If you understand their common core that was covered by interpretation throughout millions of years, by minds that became denser and denser, and saw only how can we say in English, the particles and not the whole. And they thought the particles are the whole. And this is a big problem difference. This is why we have the Book of Light now, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear and a brain to think. For the Aryan Indians were very religiously minded, and I have to emphasize that, because we are talking here about also in this particular lecture about Buddhism, and how Buddhism had been distorted throughout the years and hundreds and thousands of years, and how unfortunate people like the Mr. Lama and so forth have, you could say, raped Buddhism, this pure teaching of the Buddha. So the time has come to re-establish the honor and the genius of the Exalted One, Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni, the Tathagata. And because the Indians were so pure, so religious, they had a noble, sublime culture. Not our civilization of factory chimneys, so to speak. Our pitiable civilization. Pitiable. And what have we done? We produced one car, but we couldn't count until 1 billion, because when you produce one car, you should see if that car, everybody has a car, then you have soiled the entire world by cars. So now they understand it. Now they take something electro and so forth. Dear friends, the energy source of the future is ether. That's the teaching of the Book of Light. Ether. And this will be also soon our physical structure. More I don't want to say right now about it. The religious frame of mind is controlled from the earliest time, or it controlled the life of the Aryan Indian. Let's take a look at the Rig Veda, the hymns of the Rig Veda. This ancient sacred knowledge. You could say this is preserving the preservation of the Indian and Indo-European literature, oldest monument. 6 times as extensive as the Bible, by the way. And these texts were passed on by word of mouth. And later then, much later, recorded. And so they used the way of initiation, which is by passing on the word by mouth, from mouth to ear, and other mouth to ear, and so forth. Of course, there is a danger in that. That comes through interpretation and through abuse of knowledge. There's something else. Abuse of knowledge. Because people, like with religion, saw, this has power over the masses. So let's play around with it. Let's change here and there a word. Let's interpret. Let's say, if you pay money, you go to heaven. If you don't pay money, you go to hell, and so forth and so on. Look at the world of today. An insane world ruled by insane people. And I don't exaggerate, I think. We are in a situation, dear friends, and we were then too, still, where man identified almost wholly with his personality. But the Indians had already another point of view. They said, wait a moment, there's something that is transient and I suffer from it. Why? Who is suffering? Can the transient be suffering? No, the nature of the transient is to be transient. Who is suffering? Could it be me who is attached to the transient? Who identifies with the transient, and once it's ripped away from him, then I feel the hurt, I feel the pain. So the Indian people were the first since the culture of Atlantis and so forth, who did not direct solely their attention outwards, but inwards. And so the knowledge that was directed outwards to phenomenal world, that was presenting itself to the 5 external senses. They understood this is the rule of natural forces that shape this world. Okay. But they thought this is very superficial explanation. We don't understand it completely. And so they saw in the forces of the nature They didn't personify it like they say. This is the Indiologists who, most of them understand nothing from India. They did not personify the forces of nature. But they said that the own substance of our own substance, they said, lies behind the body, They personified the mysterious principle from which every original force of nature springs. They said this is a deva. This is an angel. Yes, there is thunder and lightning. These are angelic beings in communication, in conversation, maybe in confrontation. Who knows? And then he characterized the force behind it as God's. For instance, dear friends, they say the people, ancient people, worship the sun. That's not true. They pray to the sun. It's not true. At least not the wise ones. They prayed to the being whose body is the sun. That's a completely different thing. They didn't pray to the rupa, to the form. No, they didn't. And then they said these are gods. The sun is a god in manifestation. Earth is a god in manifestation. Planetary angel. That's what the Book of Light teaches. You know. And they clearly said and concluded that the gods were untouched by the change of the phenomenal form. That means when a planet explodes, the planet is away, but not the being. So they taught reincarnation of planets and suns and solar systems as well as of human beings. Or of animals, or plants, or minerals too. So you see, they concluded that behind the form is the true being. And the being is the expression of that form, or the state of ignorance, or the state of desire. Well, we will see if we could say that even the sun is a state of ignorance compared to the highest. What is the highest? We'll see. The highest is that from which everything comes. From God? Or really, where does God come from? Where does God come from? And who created God if He's a creator? I tell you something, dear friends. The church says, in religion, nobody created God. Okay. Book of Light teaches nobody created anything. Everything exists always and manifests periodically. Now, take that and think about that. You are responsible for whatever happens to you and happened to you. So everything that produces life is for the Indian thought divine. So the Indians concluded that everything manifests itself to our external senses reveals to us outer shell. And the term of anatta was then born very quickly. Not the self. Anatta, not the self. Long before the Buddha arrived, the Indians taught, whatever you experience as arising and passing away is not yourself. Foolish people like the Dalai Lama today switch that message to there is no self. What an insanity. But we will come to that in detail, believe me. Because it's also an insult to the Book of Light what the Lama does and did. Not to speak about the evil karma that he produced when ruling in Tibet. Did you see how he treated his people like swines? And well, swines are treated perfectly compared to what he did to them. Ordering his monk police. Okay, good. When we look at the time before the Buddha appeared, we must take a little bit time for that to understand the power and the impact when the Buddha came. When you read the Rig Veda, you must agree, yes, they have a polytheism, but you must admire it. Book of Light teaches the gods came later. So, but they are there. And if somebody wants to worship them, let them worship. Don't say the gods are not there. The gods are there. And but there is also a first emanation. There's a teaching of the Book of Light. When the universe reawakens, there is one first being. We call it the supermonad. They call it Brahman, whatever. It falls into Mula Prakriti, into root matter, and causes first, through friction, a huge circulating fire, rotating fire. So the cause of our rotation is spirit in matter. Even that little step is not being known and accepted by scientists, and they spread their childish theory that rotation is caused by particles crashing into each other. If that would be so, all rotation must already have been ceased. No good. We don't want to attack here, dear friends. We want just to present to you teaching from the Book of Light, and you do with it what you want. They put a single supreme God, they call it Prajapati. Book of Light, you can call it Badi Budi Badi, it doesn't matter. The term Brahman is very good because Brahman derives also from Brihi, to expand. When spirit falls into matter, immediately it has the tendency to expand. Why? Driven by desire. So, the cause of expansion and rotation is spirit in matter, that's all. Again, I say, take a magnetic stick of iron, a magnetic, put it in iron powder, and you will see all the powder in one movement, to the stick, attracted to it. Now turn the stick a bit, and there you have rotation. This is the first step of manifestation in Mula Prakriti. This is the reawakening of the universe. This you should teach your children in school by that simple experiment. How the universe came into being. There are three, teaches the Book of Light. The source, all beings, and root matter. These three interact periodically. They are uncreated, timeless, eternal, pre-existing. Yeah? Glory to the Book of Light, dear friends. So when the Indians, in their teaching in Rig Vedas, which is, so to speak, a little bit a changed version from the Book of Light, because the Book of Light is the oldest scripture in the universe, 150 trillion years old, since reawakening of the universe. And in about 150 trillion years, everything shall disappear again. So they set their first law of creation. They say law of creation. But, you see, I am here in my lecture, whenever I have the possibility, I'm comparing the teaching of the Book of Light to the teaching of the Buddha. And you will see similarities. And this is the wonderful thing, because, of course, even Buddhistic teaching derive all from the Book of Light. The Book of Light is the oldest scripture in the universe. And we will see how the Buddhist teachings were mainly directed and concentrating on detachment from this crazy world and the attainment of nirvana. While the Book of Light is dedicated to that too. But also it explains the entire machinery. The entire cosmos, visible and invisible. And I can only give you here food for thought, because in order to really understand, you would have to study the Book of Light, which you can find here. You can download it, no expense, all 10 volumes.